You're kicking it with G on your favorite station.
The perfect station.
92 KELZ, the only station with new music, new artists, new sound.
Just to hop right back into it, I know last time we had Officer Cordry Mills in here, we just touched on a few little things on some do's and some don'ts on some things when we're being faced with police, law enforcement. So just coming as on a civilian, do you have any particular tips that we can do to protect ourselves or, prevent ourselves from further harm?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that first and foremost, you have to understand that the officer doesn't know you, and you don't know that officer. But so there's a courtesy, I think, that you should demonstrate as to keeping your hands visible, turning down your music, and in some cases even rolling down your window. Those are some of just the basic tips. And if it's a traffic stop, pull over, as soon as you can, as soon as you feel that it's safe. If you don't feel that it's safe and you feel the need to get to a lit area or a business where other witnesses are, you should probably call dispatch. It's not a saving grace, but at least it demonstrates that you are trying to
cooperate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can, I guess, physically do that without causing yourself any harm. Like you don't want to stop in the dark area. You just want to keep going to maybe the next gas station, maybe.
And it has to be a personal choice. I mean, because
I'm glad you said that. It has to be a personal choice.
Right,
Yeah.
and so because you are required to submit to the authority of the traffic stop. However, there are things that you need to, precautions you should take for your own safety, and you need to judge the situation, case by case. So, yeah.
So, if let's say you comply with everything, and then you get to the, the final destination, and then at that point, the cop is furious.
Yeah.
At that point,
and so those are the things you have to weigh. Those are options you have to weigh. Is your safety such a concern as to risk having an officer upsetting the officer? That's something that has to be a personal judgment call. Based on the location, if you're in a small town or if you're in an area where you don't, feel like it's, safe for you to stop there. Don't drive across town. Just try to get to a lit area.
A quick spot.
Yeah.
So, if he's furious, at that point, okay, you didn't comply. That's the first thing because you kept going. At this point, is anything protecting us, or at this point, we still in the wrong because we didn't comply from the first stop?
Well, and so there's could you have stopped safely? And so that's the thing. So if it's a busy freeway or no shoulder, things like that, you kind of have to make the judgment as to where to stop. Absolutely, drive slowly, get to the right, but stop as soon as you can, and it's in a safe situation.
And this is only when you're in the car, or is this when you're walking as well?
So when you're walking, when you're not in a vehicle, the law is a little bit different. So if you're driving a vehicle, you have essentially submitted to certain authority by means of your driver's license. So that means that you have to show your driver's license. You have to show proof of financial responsibility. But if you're walking, those obligations aren't the same. You don't have to identify yourself. You don't, you need to determine the basis for the encounter.
So when you're in the car, because I'm listed, so when you're in the car, you have to show your license, no matter what, as long as you're driving.
Your driver's
Because
license.
there's plenty of videos going around saying I don't got to show, them not giving their, their license. I just don't want people to get the wrong idea,
Right,
thinking
yes.
arguing back with the officer and then that'd be it.
That's not the case. If you are operating a motor vehicle, you have a duty and obligation to provide proof that you're licensed to drive that vehicle, and if you do not, that is a arrestable offense. and or a ticketable offense or arrestable, depends on the officer's discretion, and proof of financial responsibility, and also if you are a concealed gun license holder, then you need to provide that as well.
Everything right off the bat. I would recommend, I guess, giving everything right off the bat.
Absolutely.
But, you know, some people, you know, they like to just argue all the way down to the T. Is it any point to where what rights do we have to know that we can argue with the officer? Or we have no rights no matter what, anytime an officer approaches you, that you just have to listen?
Well, so arguing with an officer is not illegal. It's not recommended, but I think the objective in a traffic stop or in a police encounter is to, one, determine the nature and the reason, and I think the ultimate objective for most citizens is to, one, leave free as a free citizen and make that encounter as short as possible. And I think that courtesy that I talked about earlier is the best route to do that, to get through that encounter as quickly as possible. But there are certain rights that you just have to know that you have. You know, you do not want an officer taking advantage of you, because and sometimes it's not even, I've realized that not all officers know the law.
Yeah.
And so they could be in a customary practice or habit of taking certain liberties without citizens ever exercising their rights. And when you do that, you know, sometimes they are unaware that you actually have the right to, you know, assert these rights.
So, okay, when you're faced with a position like that, I guess if you know a little bit more than the officer does, and you stating all your rights and telling them where it's at, and he still, at that point, gets aggressive and, you know what I mean, approaches you. So,
well, so, I mean, I think, again, so the objective is to make the encounter as short as possible, you know, for most citizens. And so I think if you know your rights and you know more than the officer, and he is violating those rights, you should probably request a supervisor. And so let me kind of backtrack. So you're approached by an officer, you want to ask, what is the reason for the stop? They're trained to provide that information. They can lie. They don't have to be honest with you. There's no law against that. But you do want to ask that, because even if they are lying, that would be useful in any type of subsequent proceeding. So.
Which gets me to my next thing, like, when is it okay to record at any time?
Yes, there is no law against recording an officer.
Because, you know, they quick to tell you, you know, put your phone down. I can hold on to my phone no matter what.
Well, no, and so there's a difference between recording and being able to keep your phone. So there's the officer safety issue, in which they would probably either want your hands visible and empty, or so you don't have a right to. Depending at the stage. So if you're being arrested or detained, you can be placed in handcuffs for that officer's safety. And at that point, they would likely take your phone from you. So that is a liberty in which, to an extent, now, if you're stopped in a vehicle, one of the more important things I see as a question is, do I have to get out of the vehicle if the officer asks me to?
That was going to be another.
And so the answer to that is yes. They are authorized to make you get out of the vehicle. So
is it just telling you to get out, or they can forcibly yank you from the vehicle if you don't get out?
Because they're authorized to, because you're required to, you know, step out of the vehicle, and they're authorized. Again, there are a lot of case-by-case and specific factual analysis that you'd have to go through, but they are within their rights to require you to step out of the vehicle. And if you don't, then yes, if you're operating a vehicle, that could likely result in arrest.
Man, and it felt like it's no laws or rights to really protect us as citizens if we see something being done wrong? Because we all know there's plenty of people that get pulled over knowing they haven't done anything. If you know you've done everything right and they're still telling you to, it's just almost like admit to you're wrong, so now we can say that you're wrong.
And so that's why not talking is one of the most well-known rights, the right to remain silent. So that's still present. And if you are driving a vehicle, again, you do have to show the proof of financial responsibility, driver's license, and CHL if you have one.
I had a question: can they impound your car for not having financial responsibilities?
If they arrest you.
Only during arrest?
Only after an arrest.
That's a good question. So I'm just trying to protect us all, all right, even with the wrong. So, like, let's say a guy.
Let me clarify too. So, if you are arrested and you are parked on a public roadway or otherwise, if your vehicle is not legally parked on like a private property, then your car can be towed. But if you pull over and let's say into a Target and you park, in a parking space, then they don't have the authority necessarily to tow your car because you're arrested on a traffic or municipal citation.
Yeah. And he ain't telling y'all to just drive to Target.
Not telling you that.
Please don't get the words mixed up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of y'all going to be like, I heard that he said just keep driving to Walmart or Target. That ain't what he said.
That
ain't
is
what
not.
he said. But so let's just think about the video that was going around on Facebook not too long ago about the guy that was being detained from a cop, didn't even know his name, just come online and just start arrest you.
That's my client, Clarence Evans.
Man, what do we do at what can I do at that point? Can I just get physical with this? He came to me. Make a citizen's arrest like that.
that you don't have the right to resist unlawful arrest in Texas. So that's another very important thing I want to communicate. You do not have the right. So even if you are being unlawfully arrested, you do not have the right to resist that arrest.
So we have no rights then, pretty much.
Correct. Now you where it gets tricky is if you are being subjected to deadly force or serious bodily injury, then you can defend yourself in that situation.
If you make it.
Right. But yeah, so that's that.
That's the hard reality that I'm just like,
the reality is that is almost never really applicable or practical, so to speak. Obviously, if an officer is just that rogue in which they're shooting at, random citizens for absolutely no reason, those types of situations are so rare, it's very uncommon that right is ever exercised. But yeah,
that's just a scary thought, just to even know that unlawful arrest, you have no rights to that. Like, I can just come arrest you and you can go free later, but right now you coming down to the station. And I feel like I didn't even really know that. So I feel like if more people would actually know that, maybe they won't step into certain, because anybody could go at this point.
Yeah, and so that's why I said I think that's a very important thing to know, that in Texas you do not have the right to resist an unlawful arrest. And so if you are unlawfully arrested, you need to seek legal action after, not necessarily there on the scene.
Okay, so let's talk about some precautions. Any precautions that we can do, period. Like any single time we're faced with law, like we can get name, badge number, unit number, or like what do we?
Requesting supervisors, because if you, like I say, that courtesy, that cordiality should be there. But if you are feeling that the officer is escalating the situation, or if you feel that the officer is not acting within the ethical guidelines of a police officer, you can request a supervisor.
Can we? I'm talking about like a greeting, like when they come up to me, hey, what's your name? Can I get your ID? Okay, can I get your name and your badge? And I'm gonna give you
Oh,
my
yeah.
ID.
Yeah, it's generally it's a excuse me, officer, why are you stopping me? And I hear a lot of people say you should be cautious, or in the questions that you ask an officer. I think that is true, but it's not the way that it should be. You should not be scared to
Ask a question.
find out why you're being stopped. Police officers are public servants, and you give them their authority and not the other way around. And so, but as practical advice, you know, politely ask, why am I being stopped? Am I free to go? If you're not free to go, you can, at that point, exercise your right to remain silent.
Man, I think that's some pretty good stuff, man. Because a lot of people, I didn't even really know half the things we're talking about. So I'm really thinking the best thing that anybody could do at this point is just record everything.
And I think you brought up Mr. Evans' case, and so in that incident, it was very important, and because I spoke about officers not necessarily knowing the law as well. So in Texas, there is no obligation to ID, and so unless you're driving a vehicle.
So I don't even have to give you ID unless I'm in a vehicle.
You do not have to give your ID. And so in that situation where Officer Lindley is, asking and eventually demanding and using physical force to obtain Mr. Evans' ID, he was at that point violating Mr. Evans' right, because he deprived him of his right, essentially to force him, and actually did forcibly take his wallet and collect his ID. But you do not have an obligation to ID until after probable cause is established and you are under arrest. So let me also make sure that that's understood. After you're arrested, you then have an obligation to provide your information.
After you're arrested.
After you're arrested.
Gotcha. What about homes? Does that protect our right for the police officers entering our home as well?
Absolutely. There's, one of the things I think the Constitution roughly gets right is home protection, and is that for ownership of the castle, and and so there are greater protections if you are inside of your home, meaning that officers can't enter into your home to arrest you unless you committed a felony in their presence, or immediately thereafter if there is a extenuating circumstance in which you basically are fleeing from the police officers and you run into your home. They can at that point do it, or if they hear what reasonably appears to be some type of crime, or someone is whose life is in danger, or health is in danger, and obviously with a warrant.
Yeah, of course. So I kind of don't know if it's the same. What about if you get pulled over, if they smell marijuana in your car, they can search your car, do all the type of search. What about the same as a house?
Yeah, that's
same thing as a house.
That's different. And
it is different.
Yeah, and because like I say, that felony is the kind of the standard. So if they smell marijuana, they don't know whether the amount, but no, they can't enter your house based off of smelling marijuana.
Oh, that's another good thing for people to know. I think we done touched over pretty much all the rights when it comes to stopping. I mean, because if you haven't done anything, they really can't even stop you from walking. If you're in a car, of course, you can get pulled over. Most of our protection I can clearly see from this conversation is we have to record every single thing. But how do you know when to record? Because you never know when you're going to get stopped.
Yeah, it's highly advised as soon as possible, safely possible to record. And it is advised to record recordings. That's why we have body cameras, and so if we have the ability to have a body camera in that encounter, I recommend that you use that because they keep everyone honest, at least that's the objective, and you can go home, and
How do you feel like things are going? This is kind of switched up a little bit towards a CBD era. Like, before you get pulled over with a cop, you got CBD in your car. It's not marijuana, it's CBD. Like, is it you have to go through the same thing as marijuana because they can't tell?
Yeah, in a sense that licenses licenses reasonable suspicion in order to conduct that search.
Have they really kind of like, I guess, put things like, I guess, on the table for CBD? Because, CBD is starting to boom up all over the place. And, certain, I guess it's legal now since they dropped it off of the substance list.
Well, yeah, and so that gets hairy because at some point there was a substance within that was still on the that was still on the schedule and which was punishable by So
it is still products. I just
so there no at some point there was the products are changing to be in compliance with the laws. So as that progresses, you start to see, and I think we're in I guess in the earlier stages
it's in that gray area, especially with things so new. I just didn't want to. Because it is so many shops popping up around, and then people having the cartridges and the oils and certain things. Nobody get pulled over and really don't know what to do. Like, well, I bought it from a store. Like, what?
Yeah.
So are the stores responsible at that point?
No, they didn't. I mean, they so vice crimes like possession are very tricky in the sense that you have to be caught in an actual possession of the drug. So, like we joke a little bit about how, people who eat or swallow their narcotics, because if you had consumed it, that crime of possession is not necessarily no longer in effect. Now you can get like tampering and possible possession, but essentially that's how fickle the crime of possession of narcotics can be. But you actually have to be in possession. So they may, at a later point, be brought up on charges. But if you're in possession of it, that's your charge.
But you got to make it through your next 30 minutes with the cop, too. You can consume all you want, but you got to make it.
And into that, now you risk a public intoxication charge. But it's a Class C. It's a Class C versus
But man, that's crazy, man. I thank you for coming out again.
No
man.
problem.
I really appreciate you for coming out. But can you, before you leave, can you give your information away for people to get in contact with you? Like if they have any more questions, maybe to get you to represent them, anything?
Oh, absolutely. My website is attorneyandreevans.com. Can be reached at attorneyandreevans.com, and follow me on Instagram at attorneyandreevans. Phone number is 832-304-1059. Please, if you guys got any questions, I'm here for you guys, protecting my people, our city. So give me a call.
Man, I appreciate it. But I got one more question. I just thought about it right now. I think this is an important question. For anybody that's going through something, how do you know you have a good attorney?
Oh. I mean, there's a couple of things. One, make sure that they practice in the area in which you need.
Get you attorney. Get you an attorney that's actually in the field that you're doing. If you want to do entertainment, get you an entertainment lawyer, not a criminal lawyer.
Right. And so, that's a tough question, and because you don't.
Because you never really know.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't. It's kind of difficult to answer. Yeah. I mean, but obviously, do your research. Look for reviews. Look for talk to them actually about their experience, their success, and their understanding and knowledge of the case. generally affords you the ability to make a determination as to their level of skill as in representing you on your particular matter.
Man.
Yeah. Just do your research.
You're kicking it with G on your favorite station.
The perfect station.
92 KELZ, the only station with new music, new artists, new sound.